Hello everyone. My colleague David and I have prepared this short presentation on the current and future impact of the Trickle Out Africa project, which is funded by the Economic and Social Research Council. David is still out in the field in Zambia, but a little more from him in a while. This presentation is all about impact, the impact that our research has. But actually, Trickle Out is also all about impact. The impact that organisations can have in helping to alleviate poverty and promote sustainable development. Trickle Out is trying to understand what kinds of benefits emerge and how these trickle out into their communities and their supply chains and beyond. Trickle Out is about helping to increase the impact of these organisations by understanding more about them and to disseminate information about them through our business directory and our case studies. So let's get to the basics. Trickle Out looks at social and environmental enterprises, for instance green businesses like ecotourism, solar technologies or organics, as well as the socially driven business models like cooperatives, fair trade or various types of social enterprises, trading non-governmental organisations and not-for-profits across the 19 countries of southern and eastern Africa. Here they all are, basically from Angola to Zimbabwe and everything in between. Across these 19 countries, we identify as many of these types of organisations as we can, alongside those that support them, say as a donor or support agency. They're all listed in our free online directory on our website, which is available in 5 languages. At the moment, there are over 3,500 of these entries. They can also register themselves. That's what we mean when we say they're verified, and we've collected some fascinating information about them during this process. In fact, this information has the potential to significantly influence the way we think about these kinds of organisations in Africa. There is so little information out there in terms of large-scale empirical research. There are numerous questions. Questions like, what does an African social enterprise look like? Does it look different to one that's in the UK? Or indeed, are they different across different parts of Africa? What role do the ultra-poor play in these types of organisations? Our data provides an incredible opportunity to look at the inner workings of these types of organisations across different African nations. You'll see some of the countries are coloured in. These are our case study countries: Zambia, South Africa, Kenya and Mozambique. Here we look at over 20 different organisations and try to understand the kinds of impacts they have in their communities and even further out into their supply chains, like a trickle-out multiplier effect, collecting data using detailed interviews during our fieldwork across these 4 countries from March until July 2012 and previously in November and December 2011. I just flew in on Sunday from South Africa, and at this moment David is somewhere in Zambia in a 4x4 with roof tents like these. I rejoin him in 2 weeks. It's definitely not the Ritz. We're using roof tents like these because it tends to help you to avoid these, and these, and these, and definitely these. Some of our communities are only accessible in these kinds of vehicles, and when the nearest fuel station is over 200 miles away, it helps to be self-sufficient in a kitted out vehicle.
Hi everyone, David here. So what is the impact of the directory so far? This is where it gets really exciting and shows the incredible level of interest there is in social and environmental entrepreneurship in Africa. Here we have the viewing figures and number of unique visits per month for the Trickle Out website. You can see these are climbing rapidly. Over the 30 days of April, we had over 180,000 hits and more than 16,000 unique visitors. That's an incredible amount of traffic, and it just keeps rising every month. For May, we are on track to beat 20,000. The directory has also been mentioned in a number of websites, blogs, newsletters and newspapers promoting this as a resource for customers, potential donors, investors, suppliers and others interested in finding out more about what is happening in terms of social and environmental enterprises in Eastern and Southern Africa. Here we see an example of the search page, allowing you to look by country, by type of business, or by keyword like organic, solar, art, or waste. As we mentioned, there are over 3,500 organisations listed, although by the time you watch this video, we think there will be more than 4,000. Listed are the various businesses, support agencies, as well as individual eco-entrepreneurs, some of whom would not normally have any web presence. This is especially important in countries where internet connectivity remains limited and power blackouts are frequent. The directory is still very young, yet we are already seeing some examples of where organisations are linking up and others are hearing about different projects they can duplicate in their countries. Here we have a screenshot from the Cookswell referral pages, where you can see how the Trickle Out directory link is used by 3 customers in just one morning. Cookswell makes energy efficient G-codes for charcoal, firewood and larger ovens used by small bakeries and safari camps. This is very important when massive areas of Kenya remain unconnected to electricity. Cookswell is one of the businesses we are studying in more detail with our case studies. More about them in a minute. This page gives an example of the contact information that each organisation can have listed. This hopefully allows all sorts of interested parties to reach out to them. It's a bit like our version of the Yellow Pages for alternative forms of business, such as social enterprises, cooperatives and green businesses. So some of our examples are non-profits, others have members who share in the benefits, whilst others might be commercial full profits, but they all have either a social or environmental mission at the core of what they do.
So let's talk a little about our case studies. Across the 4 countries, we are fortunate that a number of organisations have agreed to give us access. This is some of them listed on our website, where you can get more detailed information on each one. So that's where we've been since March, in one of these 4 countries, visiting these organisations and those they are linked to. So for every case study organisation, we interview a range of people, such as people within the organisation like the managers, owners and the employees. Then we also interview people around them, such as their suppliers or their customers, their stakeholders and the organisations with which they interact. So for the Cookswell company, we interviewed those that make the G-codes, like this one, as well as the management and some of the people who use them for their own businesses. Here's just a few examples of some of our cases. In Zambia, we're looking at a cooperative with 3,000 members, based in isolated communities who support themselves using crafts. In Mozambique, rural honey projects, and in Kenya, eco-tourism businesses based in the Maasai community lands. In Kisumu, near Lake Victoria, we met the Eco-Finder NGO, who have a number of enterprise projects, such as a community eco-tourism project taking people to see the hippos, solar entrepreneurs, and a gift shop selling pictures made from recycled eggshells, furniture from water hyacinth, and items like scarves, pullovers, jewellery and pegs made by the disabled workers linked to the Diaconian Compassionate Ministry, like Dorian seen here. Apart from the vegetables they grow, Dorian provides the family income. Dorian supports herself, her mother and her deceased brother and sister's 6 children by making crafts, mostly woolen pullovers and throws like this one, which are sold through the ministry and the Eco-Finder gift shop. When it rains, she cannot leave their house. Her toilet is an inaccessible long drop, which is basically a hole in the ground, and her wheelchair is literally falling apart and completely unsuitable for her physical condition. As the family income earner, for Dorian, the items she makes are a fundamental component of how her family survive. We also met a number of solar entrepreneurs who, through the support of Eco-Finder, each run a small business where they charge solar lamps during the day, which are then rented out to the local community overnight. These lights have helped community members to run small shop kiosks in the slums, fish at night, produce crafts, and have allowed children to read and continue their studies after dark. These lights replace the dangerous kerosene lamps and are beginning to offer these entrepreneurs real opportunities for earnings for those previously living on around $1 a day. In Cape Town, we visited a great pottery project employing marginalised youth from the community. Here they all are, proudly Macassar pottery, who make musical flutes and drums. In these communities, work is hard to come by, and the pottery teaches valuable life skills and helps them to earn an income, which often again supports extended families. We also visited Shonequip, who provide wheelchairs suitable for the African terrain. Here is the Madiba buggy, named after Nelson Mandela. Notice the thick wheels on the chairs to suit the conditions in the townships and the structured seating. So what are we actually trying to find out about these organisations? We're looking at them through two particular dimensions, that of sustainable development and that of poverty alleviation. Basically, we're mapping the impact they seem to have across these two dimensions. Whilst we recognise that employment is a major part of the alleviation of poverty, we are also adding a multi-level approach to poverty alleviation that looks certainly for economic impacts, but also issues of empowerment, education, health, dignity, employee working conditions, employee benefits, and then out into the community. So it's not just how these organisations impact those that work for them, but also about how they impact those linked to them in their supply chains and communities. But that's not all. As part of the project, we've also been bringing people together to network, interact and share experiences, increasing impact. In November 2011, we launched the project to the British Council in Nairobi, officiated by Alison Coots, the British Council Kenya Director. Most recently, we ran a masterclass on entrepreneurship and a faculty workshop. During the evening masterclass, Dr. Manu Chandaria, OBE, a leading industrialist and social entrepreneur in Kenya, was our chief guest. Over 70 members of Kenyan civil society and leading business people came together to hear a lecture on the role of entrepreneurship in economic development given by Professor Harrison of the Management School. The event was then followed by a 2-day workshop with members of faculty from South Africa, Kenya and Zambia. 22 attended this event, which was hosted by the British Institute of East Africa in Nairobi. The event was sponsored by funding from the SRC, but also by funding from Queen's University Management School, who provided funding to bring together an incredibly diverse network of academics from across 4 countries and representatives of social enterprise networks. The workshop considered the nature of African entrepreneurship, social enterprise and entrepreneurship research methods. The dialogue and relationships started in this event offer potentially great impacts on the study of African entrepreneurship by African researchers. We also gave some lectures ourselves during this time to PhD students at the University of Nairobi, business and management students at Bondo University College, and a research methods class for MBA students. So even when I'm on my field work, I still can't get away from doing a bit of teaching. Here we've also been looking more closely at the informal economy entrepreneurs in general. Here you can see David interviewing a bicycle repair business. This informal enterprise supports 3 families. The vast majority of people in Africa are employed in the informal economy, in unregistered, marginal, necessity-based ventures ranging from fruit and vegetable sellers to boda-boda taxi drivers to those selling clothing, used pots or working in makeshift stalls in the Jua Kali along the roadside. Given that so many of the microfinance initiatives that are aimed at helping the poor to use enterprise as a mechanism for development have some connection with the informal economy, we believe it is vital to know more about this sector. So we've also undertaken 60 interviews in Kenya with roadside sellers, as well as 60 for comparative purposes in the townships and streets of Cape Town. In fact, if we consider our craft makers in Zambia, all 3,000 members are essentially in the informal economy, although their cooperative itself is obviously registered. Trickle out is still ongoing, so there are many more impacts that will emerge in the future, and we still have to finish collecting data and analysing it. Our impacts are emerging at many levels, impacting knowledge, theory and policy using the macro level data we collect. The potential impact of the knowledge we are gaining on these types of enterprises in Africa is huge. But there will also be impacts on individual organisations arising from customers, donors, partners and other networks finding organisations through our directory. In fact, we may never fully capture all the information on the global impacts of the directory, given the way that social media and the internet facilitates the flow of information to the most unlikeliest of places. But impact is not just about the global impacts on knowledge, theory and practice. It's also about the impacts on people. And we're beginning to see some very personal, smaller scale impacts that we are incredibly proud to play a part in. Let's return to Dorian. The Eco-Finder team pictured here plans to build her a disabled eco-sand toilet, similar to this one. Our South African case study ShoneEquip provides mobility solutions. They plan to arrange for a trained seating specialist to visit Dorian to figure out her basic seating needs. A badly fitting chair actually makes spinal conditions worse. Then we plan to start fundraising for this chair. We estimate about £800 should be enough to support this. Some of our case studies have actually linked up. This is a solar entrepreneur supported by Eco-Finder using Tough Stuff modular solar kits, which is another one of our case studies. If this is all that Trickle Out achieves, we'll be incredibly proud, but we know that it will, and already is, achieving a lot more. Ask the 52,813 unique visitors to our website over the last 6 months, and their 642,000 hits. We are also hearing stories of interns looking for placements, impact investors looking for places to invest their funds, and NGOs looking for local partners searching our site. These are just the ones that we know about personally. Remember the snakes? Here in Lake Victoria, we met the papayas cutters, women, often widows, who spend all day in the wetland swamp, cutting the papayas grass they then dry and weave into mats, all for less than £7 per week income. Here we have just attended a saving meeting with 32 community members, where a group saving scheme is just one example of a social initiative facilitated by NGOs like Eco-Finder, helping facilitate income diversification. We are pictured here with the focus group that we just interviewed. It's hard to believe that these women spend all day, barefooted, up to their knees in dirty water, cutting grasses which they carry in bundles from the wetland. They tell us one of their biggest problems is the snakes, and want to know if we can help them to get waders to protect them from snake bites. This is a massive issue for them when they cannot afford anti-venom treatment and the clinic is many kilometres away. So here are our contact details. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And especially if you want to give us a pair of waders. We need 46 pairs, smallish sizes if possible. You can also follow us on our Facebook page. So we'd like to close now with the South African Cooperative song. Thank you for listening. Asante Sana.